Welcome back to Texas Nation. Once again, I'm your host, Grant Levenson. I'm still here with Aren Wolf, and now we've got Karl Schoening joining us for our baseball segment. Karl, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Fantastic to hear that. All right, so let's just jump right into the biggest race of the year, the Yankees versus the Tampa Bay Rays. The Yankees right now have a half-game lead over the Rays. Both teams have already clinched the playoffs. Now they're just fighting for the wild card in the AL East division lead. Karl, who do you see coming out of this on top?
You have to give the credit to the Yankees. They're certainly the team with more experience. They have the better pitching rotation. CC Sabathia, we'll get to him a little bit later when we talk about Cy Young. But the Yankees just have the experience. They're the World Series champions. And I believe they have an easier schedule. That would work out better for them. And it's not too much pressure for the Rays either if they lose a couple games, because either way, one of these two teams will be in both of these teams will be in the playoffs.
Aren, what about you?
Ultimately, it doesn't really matter because it's all we're talking about here is home court advantage or home field advantage. But I'll take Tampa Bay here. I think their chemistry, the way they go each week and do some kind of theme and dress up, they really got a great chemistry over there, and that's what's powered them through the season and made them an elite team. They're going against the Yankees, for goodness sakes, with a payroll that's outrageous. So for them to even sit there and sit neck to neck with the Yankees is good enough in my book for them to take it.
Well, Tampa Bay definitely does have a young, talented roster filled with young kids who have just a bountiful amount of talent that they can just use at their disposal. So I want to go from the AL East to the NL East. The next, I think, in my opinion, the next biggest race. Now, the Phillies right now have a 6-game lead over the Atlanta Braves. The Phillies swept Atlanta, and they've just completely taken over this lead. But, Aren, do you see Atlanta maybe fighting in to get in that wild card?
Yeah, I think Atlanta will probably get the wild card, but Philly will win the division. They're just hitting on all cylinders right now, and just like last year, right at the right time, right during the second season, the real season of baseball, and that's going to be trouble.
Karl, do you agree with him?
I agree. The Phillies definitely have a chokehold on the lead right now going into the last week or two. And certainly the sweep kind of probably took the life out of the Braves. Now they're in the NL race. They're tied up with the Padres and the Giants. That's going to be difficult for them, losing 3 in a row, now having to take care of business against the Phillies the last 3 games of the season.
Well, so
that'll definitely hurt them.
Well, speaking of taking, go ahead. Aren.
Well, I was going to say is keep in mind the season. So the rest of the season for the Braves, they got pretty good. It's Phillies. They close the Phillies, but then they have Seattle and Mariners, and so they have a good chance of getting close and then getting close to winning the division, because then if they sweep or do well against the Braves, that's game for game.
Phillies.
That's game for game.
Right.
So,
well, I want to move on to the NL West. Now, this division race is wide open. We have San Diego tied with San Francisco for the division lead, but Colorado is just 3 games back. Karl, do you see Colorado making a run up there and stealing the division lead?
That would certainly be interesting. The Padres did have a huge lead on this division. Then they went into that 10-game losing streak, and that'll hurt anybody's chances, of course. But, yeah, the Colorado Rockies have historically come back from leads. They've come back from gaps. They've closed gaps pretty quickly. And it just comes down to this is anybody's race for NL West and the wild card. Those 4 teams, Braves, and then the 3 teams from the NL East, the Padres, the Rockies, and the Giants. There's going to be a couple disappointed teams come October.
Well, of those 3 teams, Aren, who do you see coming out ahead?
I got a really good friend from San Fran, so I'm kind of rooting a little bit for the Giants. I just don't think the Giants have the pitching and the bullpen that San Diego Padres have. And that's the only reason why they've had this skid, is their starting pitching hasn't showed up as it has all season. But I'm pulling for the Giants in that terms. We'll see.
Okay. Now I want to move back over to the AL real quick. We're going to talk a little bit about the Twins. They've already clinched. They hit their magic number just the other night. Now, do you think that they can go far still with Justin Morneau being out? He's still out with that concussion that he had right before the All-Star break. And, they're resting Joe Mauer right now, but do you see them being able to go deep into the playoffs this year?
This will be their first year, and it's always hard for young teams going into the playoff atmosphere certainly the fans are ready because they're always wanting the playoffs.
Right.
But there's just a little bit of experience needed. The Phils lost to the Rockies their first year around, then the next year they won the World Series. So this team certainly has the talent. One of the best catchers, probably the best catcher in the game, Joe Mauer.
Yep.
And they should be fine, but I just don't think they're ready to take over the AL, especially with the Yankees and the Rays in the loom.
Now, Aren, another team that's very close to clinching in the AL is the Texas Rangers. Everybody in Texas loves the Rangers. Even if you're from Houston, I'm from Houston, and I love the Rangers. Now, do you see them going deep into the playoffs, even with Josh Hamilton out with broken ribs?
Well, let's be honest. I mean, this game is about starting pitching and about your starting pitching and what they're going to do in the postseason. So Josh Hamilton is a big importance to them making it deep. But if starting pitching doesn't show up and the bullpen, it doesn't matter if Josh is there or not. But
Right.
It's great to see him in the playoffs because a lot of people know the Rangers and this never happens. It doesn't happen very often, and so I think they'll go. Depending on who exactly they play first, they'll go. I think they'll go a couple series in, but I don't know if they'll win the AL. I mean the AL. I don't think. That's tough.
It'll be a tough race for sure. Both teams, the Twins and the Texas Rangers, both have a very tough. I guess there's a tough playoff race going up against the Yankees and the Rays, who are both two talented teams.
Yep.
But speaking of Josh Hamilton, guys, I want to go into the AL MVP race. Now, Josh Hamilton has been hurt, like he has seemed to always be getting hurt towards the end of the year, but he's batting .360 with 31 home runs and 97 RBIs. And this is all when he's been out for, 2 weeks? Do you see him sneaking in and just stealing the MVP trophy away from Miguel Cabrera, or do you see Miguel Cabrera taking it, or maybe even Robinson Cano?
I believe that Josh Hamilton is the only reason that Rangers team is in first place. He's playing extremely well this year. Only problem is that this is when people start paying attention.
Right.
Come about now, people are like, hey, playoffs are coming up, and where's Josh Hamilton? The voters have seen him all season long, so I believe they'll give him the benefit of the doubt with this rib injury that's kept him out for a little while. But certainly Miguel Cabrera, who leads the major leagues in RBIs, definitely has a say in that. Detroit has been playing well this year, but I think you give it to Josh Hamilton, who's had a great season, and he's on a contender.
Well, now, Aren, as Karl mentioned, Miguel Cabrera has 120 RBIs. He's also batting .326 with 35 long ones. Do you see him just running away with the crown?
Well, historically, usually leading RBI runner usually wins the MVP. Yes, I do. I like what Karl said. It's what have you done for me lately? That's going to play a factor. Not to mention he's been out in more parts of the season for Josh Hamilton. So to have the numbers he has right now, it's pretty incredible. But I think Cabrera will probably end up taking it.
Well, speaking of somebody who has incredible numbers, I want to talk about the name that nobody's heard of outside of the state of Colorado, Carlos Gonzalez. Carlos is batting .341 with 33 home runs, 111 RBIs, and then on top of that, he's stolen 24 bases. To me, just give it to him right now. But this race is a lot tighter than most people think. Joey Votto is batting .320, 35 home runs with 106 RBIs, and he's also swiped 15 bags. And then, of course, you have Albert Pujols, who's always been there. He's got 41 bombs, NL leading. He's got 112 RBIs, and then he has 12 stolen bases. So of those three guys, those are the three big names right now. Karl, who do you see getting the award?
I think the Reds' Joey Votto has the best chance at the moment. His numbers speak well. They're in the NL Central leading team, Reds. I think he definitely has the chance. Albert Pujols is always in the running for MVP. At least the last few years, it's definitely seemed like that. And that's the one problem with the Rockies slugger. He just doesn't have that kind of a big name yet.
Right.
So that'll be a kind of a surprise. People don't exactly want to say, who won the MVP? Oh yeah, I've heard of him.
Well, aren't you think that the no name will affect Carlos Gonzalez in this running?
Yeah, but not as much as it would normally because he mentioned Carlos. Usually he would be, one of your front runners, but because they're going to not make the postseason, he's not really well talked about as much in MVP as a stronger candidate. So I think Gonzalez has a good chance of winning it. Because the Reds and the Colorado were just not teams that were looked to win the division. I think that plays a role in picking MVP. If your team is in the spotlight, you get more spotlight.
Right.
And so that's what kind of where I'm getting at. And so I think he's got a good chance.
Well, speaking of teams that are in the spotlight, the Philadelphia Phillies have Roy Halladay, who this year has thrown a perfect game. He's 20-10. He's got a 2.53 ERA with 213 strikeouts. He is my vote for this year's NL Cy Young Award, but you have guys like Adam Wainwright and Ubaldo Jimenez. Do you see those guys coming up to steal that Cy Young Award away from Roy Halladay, Aren?
Roy's probably going to get it. Unfortunately, I like Jimenez. That's one of my favorites. I think what he does, and his story is just really cool. He lives with his parents, and I just the way he pitches. But I think Halladay's going to end up taking it. Halladay. Excuse me.
Halladay basically has this thing locked. If you ask me, Jimenez definitely had that amazing 15-1 start.
Right.
That was crazy. I actually had the chance to see a Rockies-Phillies game where it was going to be a Halladay-Jimenez showdown. And then the Rockies put Jimenez on the next day because Halladay was also throwing the same night. But Halladay, get this, the Phils traded Cliff Lee, who had 4 wins in the postseason last year, undefeated in 2 for 2 in the World Series, to get Roy Halladay. That's how good he is. Cliff Lee was like a superstar in Philadelphia, and they traded him to get Roy Halladay. I just think that he's had a great season, one of the best the last couple of years. He has a 1.072 whip. Like, that's just crazy. Very well.
He always puts up fantastic stats, and he's been a guy who's been doing it since he was back with Toronto, and now that he's on a team who's winning championships, I mean, they haven't won one with him yet, but now that he's on a good poster child team, he's definitely getting a lot more recognition for his work. Now, moving over to the AL, we have guys like CC Sabathia and David Price from the Rays, and then even John Lester from the Boston Red Sox. Most of these guys are really young, but they have a ton of talent. John Lester has 212 strikeouts, while CC only has 189. David Price has a 2.84 ERA, while CC only has a 3.26. But CC does have a 2-game win advantage over both of those guys. Who do you see coming out on top in this race?
Well, I think CC Sabathia has this one again because he's playing for the Yankees. Come on now. I mean, the World Series champions, they're the New York Yankees. The media loves them.
Right.
And CC Sabathia has had a great season, 20 wins, like only 7 losses and 33 starts. So he definitely has the stats to go with it. He doesn't have the best ERA out of the group, but that's been forgiven since he has the run support he does.
He does get rocked a little bit more than I think he should. And he got rocked last night. Now, Aren, who do you see winning?
It's a very interesting question because I think we saw an important game the other night, the last game of the series between Tampa Bay and New York, because you saw CC Sabathia get rocked, which is going to, could show a little foreshadowing what's going to happen in the postseason.
Right.
But I think CC Sabathia ends up taking it. You got to keep in mind, I agree with Karl, the more publicity, the more your name's out there, the more, people you're on the people's mind, rather. He may not have as good as ERA and things like that, but when the day ends, did he get the win or not?
Right.
That's what matters.
Karl, last word?
It comes down to the whole thing we were talking about, Carlos Gonzalez. People don't exactly know him. A lot of people know CC Sabathia. It's just the way it is.
It is the way it is.